Let me bring in
Chris.
Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat from New Jersey and a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, what are you hearing about Muammar Gadhafi, and what's your reaction to what appears to be his death?
Well, as has been said, we don't have U.S. confirmed reports. They're being very cautious, but I think the expectation is that this is likely to be true. And as someone who sponsored the no-fly zone resolution in March of this year in the Senate that passed unanimously, I'm glad to see that the conclusion is a new day for the Libyan people. The real question, as the celebration goes on in Libya, is where do we go from here? What do the Libyan people ultimately end up with? And is the Transitional National Council ready to move vigorously into the next phase, which is hopefully to have a country that is all-inclusive in its representation and is more secular and democratic at the end of its journey.
Yeah, the conclusion about the U.S. policy in this case, and as you said, you supported it, obviously is very positive. The no-fly zone in place, taking action in Libya, but letting NATO take the lead here. But going forward and understanding the challenges that will face this country, what can and should the U.S. role be?
Well, of course, you know, Chris, our foreign policy and our actions depend upon our national interests and our national security. And so I don't think there is a cookie-cutter approach to the region or the world. You have to look at each of the unfolding situations and think about what is the national interest and security of the United States. And, as we did in this case, whether or not you can bring the international community along with you, which is critically important. And so right now, I think that the one role the United States should be playing is working with the Transitional National Council to ensure that the final chapter of this story ends up being one in which we have a Libyan government, as I said, that is all-inclusive and democratic and secular at the end of the day. That will be a new enterprise for them because they've had a 4-decade-plus dictatorship and not, you know, the roots of democracy. This is a diverse country with different tribes. Bringing that all together is going to be critically important.
But when you say the U.S. should be working with the Transitional Council, what form do you imagine that would take?
Well, certainly working with them on the structure of what their government may look like, giving them expertise, certainly looking at the assets that we have frozen in the United States and thinking about how those assets are appropriately flowing once again to a legitimate government. Also telling the Transitional National Council what we expect of them. One of the things I hope that I have been pressing is that we will have all of the information that exists from the Transitional National Council and its outreach now as the interim government and then a future government, I hope, that will give us all of the facts and access to those individuals in the bombing of Pan Am 103 that killed 270 citizens and 34 from my home state of New Jersey. That's a condition that I'd like to see make sure that they live up to. When the TNC was here months ago looking for some of the unfreezing of their assets, I raised that question with them, and it is my expectation that they will live up to that. So
we should point out, Senator, that you introduced the Pan Am Accountability Act and that there are so many people in the United States for whom there are so many unanswered questions. Give us a little idea specifically of what you think we can learn and what you're hoping the United States will get now to let us understand what exactly happened there and the accountability that still lies with the Libyan government from Muammar Gadhafi.
Well, very likely the person who ordered that bombing is likely to be dead today, and that's Muammar Gadhafi. But there were others who worked to carry that out. To believe that al-Megrahi, who was the convicted bomber and ultimately returned to Libya in an oil deal that was struck, is to believe that only he could act alone, I think is pretty unbelievable. And so getting to all the aspects of who should be brought to justice for not only the determination of the bombing but its execution is important. to give justice to these families who have for years not had that justice. And the only semblance of justice they had was in the conviction of Al Megrahi, who was in a Scottish prison and was released because Gadhafi put a lot of pressure to have him released. So it's likely that the person who ordered the bombing, Gadhafi himself, has been killed today, but others should be brought to justice so that we can give a final chapter to the Pan Am 103 bombing and a sense of justice to our citizens here who lost a loved one.
Senator Robert Menendez, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and we'll be right back.